All right, welcome back, everybody. We're in Las Vegas. It is Radio Row here for Canelo and Jaime Munguia, but very excited. Guys know we love the boxing scene down in South Florida, and a man who's going to be main eventing, he's going down to the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. Blair Cobbs, Blair the Flair, joining us here. He is going to be fighting Adrien Broner. Blair, thanks for the time, man. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm having a great time. My training has been wonderful. Everything's been great. Thank you for having me on board.
Hey, man, it's great to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about how the fight came to be, presented for an opportunity to come down to our home down in South Florida and fight the problem?
Well, honestly, I gotta tip my hat off to Broner and Broner's team. They reached out to me and said they were interested in taking the fight, and that was something that I've been pushing for a very, very long time. They finally cracked and said yes, let's make the fight happen, and here we are.
So, what was your reaction when he first started pushing for you? Were you surprised a little bit? Was it or did you figure you would be able to lure into this matchup?
I was like, okay, well, let's see it happen. I kind of take that kind of thought process nowadays, because I tend to be the kind of person that will count my eggs before they hatch. You know what I'm saying? And things like that. So I kind of just was on the edge, is this gonna happen? It's not gonna happen. We'll see how it happens. You know.
For the South Florida audience who's never seen you box before and then are gonna buy tickets to the show, what can they expect from a Blair the Flair type of performance?
They can expect nothing but the best in entertainment, drama, action. This is something very, very big, and for someone that considers himself the most excited man in boxing, Blair the Flair, I tend to go out there and woo all night long, baby.
Has that always been a thing that's important to you, not to only be a good fighter but to be an entertainer?
Absolutely, absolutely. Boxing needs more entertainment. Boxing needs true mega stars to push the envelope forward, and Blair the Flair is one of them.
What do you make of Adrien as an opponent? Obviously, he's been on some very big stages before. He's kind of on this bounce back, and I know you're going to probably stand in the way of that bounce back. So what do you make of his skill set now? Still dangerous, or do you feel like this is a guy that's maybe not the same that he was at his best?
Adrien Broner is still young, still a problem, and I have to be at my very, very best to perform at the elite level and stop him. And that's the thing. That's the thing. Once this happens, Blair the Flair is the #1 guy in the welterweight division. I will be the only person that actually fought a true big name and a real fighter that's been multiple world champion. Broner has a ton of skills, a ton of ability, and has a persona to even match the abilities that he has. So me going out there to impress and dazzle the world with a major upset is everything that I intend to do.
Sometimes in his fight weeks, shenanigans can pop up, and is he going to show up to the fight? So there's been times where it's pulled out. Is there any part of you that has to just kind of block that out because it's not in your control? Or you mentioned sometimes you're a counting type of a chickens type of guy. Do you worry about that at all? He might not be ready for the fight, or there may be something that pops up, and how do you deal with that, or how will you deal with that?
Well, I deal with it like this. I wake up every morning and realize that on my vision board that I had for God knows how long, there was only one thing on that vision board outside of $100 million and a beautiful mansion in Malibu. It was Adrien Broner versus Blair the Flair. And me knowing that fight is inevitably going to happen, and I'm going to be the winner. I'm going to be great, and it's going to happen no matter what. In my heart, in my mind, in my spirit, all I have to do is give it to God. I give it to God, and I believe, I have faith that everything's going to work out just the way it's supposed to. This is God-given.
Blair, can you talk a little bit about, reading in your bio, it says that you went and turned pro early in Mexico and lived there till you were 18. Can you talk about your journey just a little bit of that?
Well, I didn't turn pro. I didn't turn pro in Mexico. What ends up happening, as a child, I was in Mexico. I was on a run. My father was on the FBI most wanted list and things like that. Things that I was not like aware of. I wasn't aware that he was a kingpin drug dealer. I just knew that like things were very nice at one point. We're living in Beverly Hills. I'm going to the school that I always wanted to go to because I watched Clueless. You know what I mean? So now I'm going to Beverly Hills High School, and it was a beautiful environment, beautiful time period that came crashing down to like a series of unfortunate events that plagued me to be in some of the toughest and grimiest places in the world. Like there was like Guadalajara, Mexico. Like I was in a pretty nice little area, but then like I would still go to like the toughest cities and the toughest streets to the boxing area to get involved in boxing. I got involved in boxing because it was like one of my last resorts. It's like if I have nothing, I have no identity, I have nothing, I could die today and nobody would ever know that I even existed. Like I don't like most of my like closest family members are either there or dead. So like I could die right now and it doesn't really matter. So at that point it's like what's the worst thing what's the most reckless thing I can get into? What's the most reckless thing I can get into? Well, you know something? I always wanted to box. I always wanted to get in there with like some of the toughest people. And if I could die in that ring, then at least be that way. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those situations where as though like I went into the gym the first day I sparred. You know what I mean? The first guy, I completely I deleted him. I never saw him again. But the second guy completely destroyed me. You know, completely destroyed me. And I just kept coming back. I kept coming back. And
what age was that at when you first started?
That was at like 15 years old.
15 years old.
Yeah. And I kept coming back and something happened. I didn't die like I thought I should have been. You know, I'm in the grimiest streets. You know what I mean? Yeah, and
you're boxing in Mexico?
Yeah. Because
that's like, I mean, obviously we're Cinco de Mayo weekend. This is like such a storied sport for them too. But like, was there a different style even then in the gyms? Like when you were 15 years old, you're walking in here. Like, what was it? Like, what was the shock like for that? Because that's like a second religion down there from Mexico too.
Yeah, like that's why I expected to die. You know what I mean? Like, this is supposed to be the biggest fighting city in the world. In Guadalajara, like, at the time, I knew Canelo. You know what I mean? I knew Canelo before Canelo was Canelo. He was just Saul. You know what I mean? He was some red-headed kid that was on my undercards. It just happens, you know what I mean? And, like, 2 weeks after training and getting beat up every single day, I had my first fight. I had my first fight after only 2 weeks of training, you know, and I sparred almost every day. You know, I was on a mission to, like, if this don't kill me, then I must be the greatest. And that's what happened. And I just continued on. And of course, more downfalls. Getting, like, taken from Mexico and leaving the country to go to Philadelphia, which is probably one of the toughest cities in the world. And it has no real, resources. So it took a long time to actually get exposure. Because the only way I can actually get out is by leaving Philadelphia. Once I left Philadelphia and it was completely just done, I'm like, man, I had it. I have to get out of here. You know, like the trenches of oppression is real. And then I got out of there and came to Vegas. It was almost like night and day. Like, it only took me like 2 weeks. And then I blew up.
Once you got to Vegas.
In Vegas,
what,
yeah.
Like, so what was there ever a time in Philly or along the way, like, you're like, this isn't going to work out? Like I mean, you seem like a guy who's visualizing a lot and very, very a lot of self-motivation there, but was there ever a point where you thought, this isn't gonna happen? Or did you always stay confident that you could get to this point?
I have, like, this thing, right, where I have just the smallest seed of faith. You know, just to get me by on some of the biggest trenches in my life. Let me tell you, I would be a liar to tell you that I always believed. I would be a liar if I was to tell you that I never felt like giving up. Giving up has been like one of the biggest factors. Cause like it's like almost every day it seems like you have to wake up and like remember why you started in the first place and believe it And it's not a whole lot of faith. It's just that little tiny faith to get you over that hump. Because sometimes it's just like, you know what? Let me just go to sleep. If I could just not kill my self tonight, if I could survive this night, something's going to happen tomorrow. At least the sun is going to rise tomorrow. And that's kind of like what happened in a lot of cases, in a lot of scenarios. When I started boxing in Philadelphia, I was like 4-0 and then nothing for like 3 years. You know, I couldn't get a fight to save my life. Everybody knew I was unbelievably talented. You know, I was hurting everybody that was in the gym. So it's like I couldn't even get sparred, for Christ's sakes. You know, and now in those times when I'm like at my darkest days, I had to survive. And then even with the whole Golden Boy and this and that and going through this whole legal stuff, and I had to be out for a whole year, whole 2 years. You know, and in my darkest nights, I'm like, look, they're like, oh yeah, you're old. Oh yeah, and this. Oh yeah, and that. It's like everything's telling me that I'm worthless. You know, until I believe, God, it ain't over. It's not over yet. And that's how I got to this point. I got to this point by just waking up that next day and surviving that darkest night.
Blair Cobbs, Blair the Flair, joining us here. He's going to be fighting Adrien Broner June 7th, South Florida. If you want to get to the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, you get this win. I know that you got to focus on Adrien Broner, but what is the next step? Like, what do you imagine? You get this victory, which I'm sure you're very confident that you're going to do. What do you want next? Like, what is the short-term plan for you, I guess, over like the next step after you beat Adrien Broner?
I'm being 100% honest. I'm not overlooking Adrien Broner, so all roads leads to this moment. You know, we can talk about the Terence Crawfords and the Ennis and all the things that's to happen. You know what I mean? That's inevitably happening. These are things that I've spoke about for years and years and years and years and years. They cannot stop me. They can only slow me down for a second. You know, Golden Boy can't stop me. They can only slow me down for a second. No one can stop me. They can only slow me down for a second. I'm coming, and I'm coming bigger and better than ever before. So, like, right now, only thing I'm thinking about is Adrien Broner. Adrien Broner, June 7th, the biggest attraction in boxing history is going to make way. And that's all I got to say about that.
Hey, he's sold you guys. If you guys, after that, don't want to go to the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino on June 7th, I don't know what the hell will. Blair the Flair, Blair Cobbs, thanks so much for the time, man. Really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me on.